welcome back. We want to talk about a new DFARS CMMC rule. If you're a defense contractor or you plan to be, you better listen up. The Department of Defense just finalized a rule that changes how cybersecurity compliance works in contracts now. Now, without meeting these requirements, you can't even win a DoD contract. Now, CMMC, that is a Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, it's a DoD cybersecurity framework that verifies contractors can properly safeguard FCI and CUI. What is FCI? FCI is just federal contract information, like payment details, your schedules. So these are the data that is generated for or by the government under a contract, but not meant for public release. Now, CUI has to do with sensitive government information that isn't classified, but still requires protection. Now, these are the technical drawings, the engineer's plans, and all those kind of information. Now, all those kind of information falls under what we call CUI. So FCI and CUI. In short, CMMC ensures that companies working with the DoD have the right cybersecurity practices in place to protect their sensitive and unclassified data. Now, what happened on September 10th? And I'm sure that everyone is amazed by this news. Now, DoD issued a final rule updating the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement, popularly known as the DFARS. Now, what does this rule say? We're going to break it down for you. This rule makes CMMC compliance a condition for contract award. This goes into effect November 10, 2025, with a 3-year phase rollout. What does this mean? This means that on September 10, 2025, the DoD issued a final rule updating the DFARS that anyone that is seeking contract with the DoD must be in compliance with CMMC. And so if you're not in compliance with CMMC, you can't get a contract with DoD. It's no more an option. It's a requirement. This is a major milestone because it makes CMMC certification an actual requirement for winning DoD contracts. In other words, if you don't meet the CMMC level specified in the solicitation, you simply won't be eligible for any award or any contract with the DoD. The rule officially takes effect on November 10th, 2025, and will be rolled out gradually over a 3-year period before becoming mandatory for all DoD contracts starting late 2028. So if you have a contract with DoD, you better start working on it. Why is this important? Now, this is so important because CMMC is designed to be able to safeguard FCI and CUI data. These are the lifeblood of defense contracting. Why? Because they have things like the technical data, engineering drawings, the sensitive project schedules. Look at all the flights that are being made, the arms that are being made by the DoD, all this information, everyone that have those contracts, and you have those kind of information or schematic information, you need to be able to abide by it. Now, by requiring CMMC, the DoD is trying to strengthen their defense industrial base and reducing billions lost every year from the cyber theft and attacks. It might be expensive to put CMMC in place, but at the long run, it benefits the DoD and to be able to also protect your organization. Now, CMMC has various levels. Level 1, the rule establishes that the 3 levels of CMMC, that is the level 1, that is self-assessment, focuses on just basic safeguarding of FCI. Level 2 can either be a self-assessment or an independent third-party assessment through one of those certified 3PAOs. And it's required for almost all the contractors that handle CUI. So remember, the level 1 deals with FCI data. The level 2 comes down to all the contractors that are having CUI. And the level 3 is the highest. Now, the level 3 is requiring an official defense industrial-based cybersecurity assessment center, that is the DIBCAC, review for companies with the most sensitive data. Remember, the higher the level, the more trust and verification is required. And the amount that is involved in your contract also determines the amount of level that is required. Now, let's look at the core requirements under the new DFARS rule. Now, this is first an award eligible. Contractors must already have the correct CMMC status at the time of the award. When extending an option or at a renewal, you can't win or keep a DoD contract without a CMMC compliance status level. The next are the levels. The level 1, you see the self-assessment, as we mentioned, that is required for FCI. The level 2 is required for the CUI, where you do a self-assessment, or you do an assessment to a 3PAO. The level 3, as we talked about, you need the DIB CAC. Now, for the level 2 and 3, there's a condition certification that can be granted. Because all the time when DoD is coming out with this regulation, they want to make sure that there are exceptions. And one of these exceptions is that only for up to 180 days when it comes to those for level 2 and 3. Now, during this time, DoD is saying that you must close out all your poems or move into full compliance. What does it mean? Now, the poems are all the risks or the issues that are being generated after an assessment. So after you do a self-assessment or after you do a full assessment, the result that comes out, DoD is saying that make sure that in 180 days, they can give you a conditional contract, but the contract will require you that in 180 days, complete the poem or make sure that it's in compliance. There is also a continuous compliance requirement every year. Now, an affirming official must submit an affirmation in the Supplier Performance Risk System, popularly known as the SBRS, to confirm if you are still meeting the requirements. Each contractor information system that processes FCI or CUI will receive a unique identifier in the SPRS. And finally, these requirements also flow down. What does it mean? If you are a subcontractor who handles SCI or CUI, you must also meet the appropriate CMMC level. And for that, there is no exception. I'm sorry. I wish I had better news for you. Now, what have changed after they released this? Now, this final rule looks differently from the earlier proposal, thanks to feedback from people like you who contributed. Now, the DoD has removed the requirement to report every minor lapse in security, because that was what they were requiring at first. But the final rule, we can see that they have taken that out. Now, they have clarified definitions for key terms like the FCI, CUI, and CMMC status. They confirmed that court item, now when we say courts, we are talking about some of the vendors or the third parties that we are buying items from, or commercial off-the-shelf products are excluded. They also clarified how subcontractors make sure that they are in compliance and their compliance works, and they confirm that the poems can be used to support conditional certifications. One of the most important things about this final rule is how much our comments have made an impact in this, and we thank the DoD for putting all these things into practice. Let's talk about the impact very well here. Now, this rule isn't just affecting a few companies. It impacts more than 337,000 entities across the DIB. What's more, about 68% of those are smaller businesses. So this is going to be touching every organization, irrespective of their size. Now, the compliance costs include assessments, annual affirmations, and some reporting work that needs to go in there. But the upside is significant. Why? The benefit is better protecting against cyber theft and intrusions that cost the US economy billions of dollars every year. The DoD estimates around $40 million in annual compliance costs for industry. But that investment is expected to save billions by reducing losses from cyber incidents. In other words, The cost of compliance is tiny compared to the cost of doing nothing. Finally, let's cover the timeline. The rule takes effect on November 10, 2025. For the first 3 years, its inclusion in contract is optional. So we have 3 years to be able to get ourselves ready, based on whether the program officer decides we are requiring. But after November 10th, 2028, CMMC becomes mandatory for all DoD contracts, with the only exception being contracts for court items. So what should contractors do now? Step 1, you need to determine whether you handle FCI or CUI. Step 2, you need to identify which CMMC level applies to your organization. Step 3, you need to register in SPRS and PIE and make sure you have a cage or NCAGE code. Now, step 4, you need to perform the self-assessment or schedule a 3PAO assessment if that is required. And step 5, you need to maintain your annual affirmations so your compliance status stays current. Starting now is going to save you from scrambling when the rule becomes fully mandatory. The bottom line is simple. The new DFARS rule cements CMMC as a gatekeeper for defense contracting. It's no longer just a best practice, it's a contract requirement. So whether you are a prime or a subcontractor, you need to know your CMMC level, plan your assessment, and keep your compliance current. The cost of preparing is small compared to the cost of being left out of billions in DoD contract. So you need to be able to take some actions now, because 2028 it will come very soon, and CMMC won't just be part of the process. It will be the price of the admission. Stay ahead, stay secure, and remember, you have to secure your contract. This rule is not optional. Without CMMC, you are locked out of any DoD contracts. So start your compliance journey now. If you want a deep dive into the various requirements, I'll be covering the levels 1, level 2, and level 3 in our upcoming videos. So hit subscribe and turn on the notifications. Welcome to 4Think.